Hi everybody, welcome back to another Saltivation video. Today we thought we would talk just a little bit about some payroll items. We are by no means payroll experts. We do not do payroll as a full-time, service line. However, we have seen, it seems like in the last 12, 18, even 6 months, a lot of transitions between companies doing in-house payroll, transitioning away from a PEO, also transitioning back to a PEO. So we just thought we'd kind of put out a general PSA regarding things to think about when you are kind of shifting your payroll. I don't know, Stace, you want to kind of take it over?
Sure. Well, I think all of us have had clients that are in both of these scenarios where either they're shifting away from PEO and or shifting to PEO. I think where I've seen a little bit more notices and things of that nature is the shifting to a PEO where clients haven't closed accounts that they had open when they were managing their withholding and unemployment in-house. For those of you that may not be familiar with a PEO, and this is not blanket, the states typically, it's not blanket, but the states typically then use this PEO as the employer of record with the states. That's not the case everywhere, but majority of states consider the PEO as the filer, the employer of record. So the PEO is the one that files on behalf. Well, then if you've got a client that had open accounts, they were doing their payroll all in-house, and if they do not close those accounts, then they could receive notices from the states after they move on to a PEO, because the PEO, like I said, is the employer of record. So the states have no idea that this is occurring. And we've seen clients receive notices, some of which get to be material in nature, because a lot of states, as many of our listeners probably know, will just slap arbitrary assessments on if they're not getting returns filed. So it's really important for clients to look and see what accounts are open, close them if they need to, and then file any zero returns that might, be out there when, if there was a lapse in the fact that the account had not been closed after moving on to a PEO. So those are some things that we've seen. And I think, Meredith, you have a specific example where we've even got clients receiving jeopardy assessments, and it's getting to a little bit higher level and or a little bit more serious from the state's perspective, and the states will take monies from other accounts to apply to payroll taxes.
Yeah, we're currently trying to figure out what to do with the situation of a transition, just even intercompany. They're streamlining payroll. There were a lot of acquisitions, so they're setting up one kind of payroll company and acquire kind of that transition. The state of California actually garnished a refund from the IRS for about $20,000, which is not an insignificant amount of money for this company. So now it's a matter of like, well, okay, how do we get that back, right? So yeah, it's really challenging, especially because in the payroll realm, oftentimes you're dealing with two different jurisdictions. So there's two different licenses. You've got the Department of Revenue on the withholding side, and the Department of Labor or equivalent that kind of manages that unemployment insurance and workers' comp stuff. So just a lot of various governing bodies associated with, hiring someone or having an employee in state.
Yeah. I'm not sure we can say we're not payroll experts anymore. I don't think we started out as payroll experts, but now, ever since COVID and the push towards a more remote workforce out of necessity, I think we've kind of been living in this world for 3 years now. So I think we're becoming state payroll experts.
That's fair. We'll caveat that. That is.
Yeah. But Stacey, I like your call out about the zero returns, because I've been seeing this a lot in my work as well, where there's a lot of notices for lapsed accounts because of failure to close them. And it's really just a timing difference, right? It's a resource issue, right? Where companies are so focused on the transition and the opening of the new accounts that the old accounts are kind of pushed aside out of just practical necessity. And we'll address that later. So what's the easy solution there? Well, don't immediately fire your previous provider, right? So if you're transitioning away from either a PEO or to a PEO, then have an overlap where they're still filing, but there's no data flowing, right? So your cutoff is 6/30, 7/1 for the transition date. Keep them on the old provider for the overlap and have them file 0 returns until you can close the accounts, and that essentially resolves all of it. Yeah, it does cost a little bit extra, but you're either paying the provider to do those zeros, or you're paying some resource, whether an internal resource or an external one, to deal with all those notices and all those account closures and potential assessments, and having to deal with all that administrative nonsense. So it's not really a savings from that perspective, but it does certainly make life a lot easier. So that's my observation.
Well, and that's a really great point, Alex, too. Also, your old PEO or, even just your payroll processor has those historical records that you may not have been good about pulling out of the system or having access to. Kind of the second you stop paying them, they are not overly, happy to give you historical records. And so, to the extent that you are going to make that shift, make sure you have every sort of piece of paper associated with those accounts, because it is almost, even our experience has been, sometimes it is even a difficult task to get them those records when you are an active paying customer. Yeah. And certainly when you aren't, it's almost impossible. And then
it's interesting how communication just slows down when you stop paying the bills.
No, right? Exactly. Right. A contract lapses, right? Yeah. Exactly. It is difficult to get that information. Yeah. It's really important. It's a good reminder, Meredith, that, taxpayers really need to kind of get that documentation, that those reports in a timely fashion, if they can, because of that issue. And I mean, it's not just, and this isn't really just true for PEOs, to be honest. I mean, we've got plenty of clients that have taken things in-house, but they use a third-party processor. And they could be even switching processors. And so some of these issues with keeping that, keeping all that information, being able to access that information, if they even switch processors, is a good lesson, because, we've got clients that we're still, maybe a couple years later, even still trying to clean up accounts from moving away from a PEO to in-house to a specific processor. Fast forward, now they're using a new processor, and it can be kind of messy with that transition as well.
100%. So for those listeners who are dealing with payroll struggles, you are not alone. Right. We are, as Alex said, maybe we are payroll experts now. So apologies to the community, to us internally, and devaluing what the services we maybe provide. We can help you with that. We can help you through that. We can also provide a listening ear. So thanks for everyone stopping by the Saltivation, and we'll see you next time.